Hi, everybody. This is Jason Rosenbaum, a political correspondent with St. Louis Public Radio, and it's time for something new. I am launching a new addition to St. Louis Public Radio's digital repertoire, tentatively called the as yet unnamed Jason Rosenbaum Video Question Response Series. I think we'll think of a pithier name at some point in 2025. It's pretty simple. I pose a question on various social media platforms. You answer, and I curate, cobble together, piece together the best responses. Is this a little bit similar to the Let's Argue series that Anthony Fantano revolutionized? Just maybe a little bit. I may watch Fantano videos every now and then. Even though we differ on the genius of MGK's pop punk songs, I do respect Fantano quite a bit. Hopefully, though, I will be able to put my own spin and my own flourish on this, and hopefully you enjoy this and we can make this a semi-regular thing. Let's go to the first question ever for the as yet unnamed Jason Rosenbaum Video Question Response Series, and that is, who comes to mind when you think about Missouri politics and why? Harry Truman, 33rd president, man from independence, rose from humble roots, helped along by the old Kansas City Pendergast machine, but frustrating boss Tom by being stubbornly honest. Thrust into presidency by FDR's death, remembered today for plain talk, decisive action. I mean, I honestly thought that everybody was going to answer Truman for this question. What else do I have to say about Harry S. Truman? Honestly, the most amazing accomplishment that Truman did was winning the 1948 election. There's a reason why my beloved Chicago Tribune thought that Dewey was a shoo-in, because on paper, like, Truman should not have won that election, but he is an electoral beast. Just ask my boy Lloyd Stark, the former governor of Missouri, the man from Louisiana, just how beastly Harry S. Truman can be. Mel Carnahan, both for the loyalty of Missouri voters to show up for candidates they like, and the absurdity of Mo voters for voting for a candidate who died before the election. I see echoes of this in Missouri voters approving progressive ballot amendments and then voting for reps who dismantle those same amendments. We actually got a lot of responses saying Mel Carnahan, a political figure who was before my official start of my Missouri journalism career. I was, I believe, 16 years old when he died in Jefferson County in 2000. I was living in Illinois. I think that, like, the biggest legacy that Mel Carnahan has is just his political acumen. He was able to put the Missouri Democratic Party on his back, allow down ballot candidates who really had no business winning to prevail. And one of the things that I remember from my Northeast Missouri excursion in 2022 on specifically former Senator Wes Schumeyer's farm is when Schumeyer talked about how when Carnahan died, there was really a void in Missouri Democratic Party leadership. Thomas Eagleton. I wrote to him as a high school student about my concern about the U.S. Senate voting down the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, and he was so nice writing back to me. I met him when I visited St. Louis 2 years later to look at WashU. Years later, after he died, I was telling Michael Middleton about how he was one of the most unwavering Missouri politicians on civil rights, and he told me why. He grew up in a house that had a restrictive covenant banning Catholics, and he was Catholic, so he understood that not supporting civil rights was wrong from personal experience. Missouri senators are so far away from his greatness. I'm really glad somebody mentioned Thomas Eagleton, another politician who, unfortunately, I never got to meet. Thomas Eagleton is one of the politicians in Missouri who I admire the most. I think it was amazing that he was able to continue serving in in the U.S. Senate with a really debilitating mental health condition. I read somewhere that he actually had bipolar disorder, which is no joke. That's his legacy. He showed that you are still able to serve even if you have a really serious mental health disorder. And that should be his legacy, not what happened with George McGovern. I thought of Claire McCaskill. Showing my age here, but 2006 is the first memory I have of seeing a political ad or understanding that there was an election. Additionally, she was just around forever, saw everything, knew everyone, and had a presence in all parts of Missouri with crossover appeal, which seems insane now. I think if you look at some of McCaskill's performances, especially the 2012 race, it is absolutely crazy how well she did, given that Mitt Romney won the state by 9 percentage points. I think it's kind of up in the air about who was the better electoral performer, whether it was Jay Nixon or Claire McCaskill. I think both of them, in their own rights, had really impressive strengths in terms of piecing together the rural-urban-suburban coalition. But yeah, McCaskill is still a very visible political figure because of her role at MSNBC. And she was also a very visible national figure. Jim Talent, when he was a senator, he came to Cape Girardeau when I was in elementary school. My mother took me to listen to his speech. I distinctly remember shaking his hand afterward. He was kind, humble, and wise. It was pretty clear that the 2006 election campaign was not going to go well for Republicans when Jim Talent lost, because unlike other Republican candidates that year, like in Montana or Virginia, who lost either because of scandal or because of a major gaffe, there was nothing that Jim Talent did when he was in the Senate that was like incredibly disqualifying for him. There's always a discussion about whether like Talent was going to come back in some capacity, like he'd either run for another office or he would get an appointment from a Republican administration. It never seemed to happen, but I got a sense he was content with kind of leaving the public service arena behind. But it wouldn't shock me that if he was brought back at some point in the Trump administration, especially in a defense-related matter. Crystal Quaid. She was the longest-serving House Minority Leader since term limits started. She's incredible at organizing, building connections for progress, and got quite a bit done despite a Republican supermajority in the Missouri legislature. She's smart as a whip and dedicated to Missouri. I always said that when millennials started holding legislative leadership positions, it was a sign that I was no longer a young man. And when Quaid became minority leader, it was the same year that Elijah Har became speaker, and he's also a millennial, albeit an older millennial. But I honestly don't think that like their generation or their age really mattered. I think both of them had to deal with COVID, and then after Har left, you really saw Quaid and the Democratic caucus become more effective. And I don't think we've seen the last of Crystal Quaid. I think she will likely run for the Senate seat that's held by Lincoln Huff. And given that that seat is now basically 50-50 and it's going to be a midterm election with Donald Trump in office, I think she's probably the soft favorite, even though I can't recall the last time a Democrat held that seat, and maybe never, because Southwest Missouri is so Republican. In which state was Ed Blunt governor? Well, obviously the same state in which Mike Parsons and Ron Richards served, obviously.